Hey everyone, today's video recap will be one of the most trending and popular British mystery action film of 2022. It is Enola Holmes 2. The film was directed by Harry Bradbeer from a screenplay by Jack Thorne. The story is about the courageous excursion of the teen detective investigator, Enola Holmes. Just this time, the occasions have been enlivened by a genuine story. Enola set up her own investigator organization and endeavored to address the instance of missing young lady Sarah Chapman. It stars Millie Bobby Brown, Henry Cavill, and Helena Bonham Carter. Shooting started in autumn 2021 and finished in January 2022. Enola Holmes 2 was delivered on November 4, 2022, by Netflix. This was a brief introduction to film, and now let's begin to dive into the plot and enjoy watching. Likes and subscriptions are highly appreciated. Subsequent to addressing the Tewkesbury case, Enola concluded that it was no time like the present. She opened her own detective office. She cherished tackling cases, and she needed to construct her believability as an investigator in English society. She was insightful and talented, and she knew jiu-jitsu. At this point there was one thing that remained against her: she was a lady. The misanthropic culture didn't completely accept that a lady was equipped for tackling a case or doing anything like that freely. On occasion, individuals confused her with being a secretary or junior partner to Sherlock Holmes. Individuals didn't have a good sense of security relying upon her. Enola felt frustrated. It disliked she was offered a chance, and she fizzled. She was dismissed even prior to being tried. She understood that perhaps she was whimsical like her mom, who put stock in the idea of an equitable society. She began to scrutinize her own value. She realized she was unique, yet the world was resolved about causing her to accept that she was not adequately commendable. Her fantasy about joining the pantheon of extraordinary Victorian investigators was broken. Be that as it may, additionally, she needed to set to the side her longing to show off her abilities before her sibling, Sherlock Holmes. Yet, one fine day, the impossible occurred. A young lady named Bessie came to her office. She believed that Enola should track down her missing sister. Enola knew that perhaps this was the open door she had been sitting tight for. Be that as it may, the case was not generally so straightforward as she had suspected it would be. There were numerous dull and messy insider facts of the world and the men that repressed it, that Enola was totally ignorant about. She didn't have a clue about the hazardous idea of the calling she had picked as her profession. Sarah Chapman had been absent for 7 days. Bessie was not her genuine sister. Sarah had fairly embraced Bessie, and from that point forward, the two had been indivisible. Sarah was a charitable young lady, and there was not a great explanation for why she would have been hijacked. The young ladies worked in the match processing plant, and Bessie let Enola know that 7 days prior, Sarah had a battle with Mr. Hunch, the foreman at the production line. Enola was stunned to see the destitution-stricken way of life of the young ladies. She met May, who additionally lived in a similar structure as Sarah. May knew Sarah, however she had an exceptionally unfriendly demeanor. She didn't need Enola nosing about the spot, yet since Bessie needed her, May couldn't do a lot about it. Enola requested that Bessie take her to the match production line, where she professed to be another worker. Enola went inside the fundamental office when no one was looking and found a register that was kept in the vault. She saw that a couple of pages of that register were missing, and someone had torn them. Enola heard a discussion between Henry Leone, William Lyon, Charles McIntyre, and Mira Troy. Someone had taken something of significant worth, and the match production line organization was being coerced. Henry Leone and others came to meet their representatives, and we came to realize that a great deal of young ladies had lost their lives because of typhus fever that had spread locally. The organization was exceptionally worried about their well-being, and it seemed like they needed to take care of business. Enola, by noticing the conduct qualities of May, had understood that she was looking for trouble. Afterward, she came to realize that May had caused an interruption and assisted Sarah with entering the workplace, where she took the pages from the register. Enola followed May to a performance center named Paragon, where the last option used to work. Enola had a fight with May, and she understood that Sarah likewise used to work there. Enola found a letter on the table where Sarah used to do her cosmetics. There was verse composed on it, however Enola realized that there was some profound significance that she couldn't interpret. That evening, Enola was trailed by a mysterious man, and keeping in mind that attempting to beat him, She chanced upon her sibling Sherlock Holmes as well. Enola sorted out that there was a location concealed inside the verse. She went to 28 Bell Place in Whitechapel and found May, who had been cut by somebody. Before she could do anything more, Inspector Lestrade and Director Chalice showed up at the scene. Enola legitimately thought that Chalice was a similar man who had followed her an evening or two ago. Enola had tracked down a paper with melodic documentations in May's pocket. Before Chalice and others could arrest her, she got away. Enola proceeded to conceal in Sherlock's home, realizing that it was the main spot where she would be protected. The kin went into a trade bargain. It was concluded that Sherlock would inform her regarding the monetary trick case that he was researching, and Enola would enlighten him concerning Sarah Chapman. Sherlock let Enola know that there were unaccounted cash moves across different banks. There had been independent filings by means of 5 distinct records, and everything went to a confidential bank through a depository. Sherlock had sorted out that whoever was behind it was a virtuoso who knew how to cover their tracks. It disliked Sherlock had no leads, yet every time he was running out of road. There had been a break-in at the Treasury office 7 days before the main exchange. There was a man wearing a Titan crown cap who had taken a few vital reports. Sherlock didn't have any idea how the break-in was associated with the illegal tax avoidance case. Enola informed Sherlock regarding the Sarah Chapman case and what she had found about it. She showed him the letter and the paper with melodic images. Sherlock went to the crime location and knew immediately that his case and Enola's were associated. There was an obscure message concealed inside all the proof, and the culprit maintained that Sherlock should track down it. Sherlock changed over the first record number to its relating letter set of English language and figured out that the rascal was called Moriarty. It was a test, and Sherlock knew immediately that Moriarty was doing so simply because the person in question was very sure about the arrangement. Enola had likewise translated that William Lyon, the child of the match production line proprietor, Henry Lyon, played a part to play in the plan of things. William was the person who sent that obscure letter to Sarah Chapman. Enola went to a ball coordinated by the match manufacturing plant proprietors. She met a dubious lady named Cicely at the ball, who was very excited about conversing with Tewkesbury. It made Enola a piece envious that Tewkesbury was standing out enough to be noticed from the females. Before Enola could get additional leads, she was captured by the cops and brought to jail. Sherlock was terrified for her sister. He was a realistic man, and he didn't believe that she should become like him. Her fixation on the calling was someplace frightening Sherlock. Enola needed to work autonomously, however Sherlock realized she would require all the assistance she could get for the case, as there were numerous huge players included. The truth was getting more obscure and there was an inevitable danger of death. Who did Sarah Chapman believe that should uncover? Who was Moriarty? The match manufacturing plant has multiplied its benefit over the most recent few years. Enola realized that there was an off-putting thing about the entire typhus circumstance, as well. Sherlock reached Edith, Eudora Holmes' companion from Part 1, when Enola was captured by the police. Eudora and Edith broke into the jail and assisted Enola with making a getaway. Enola indeed returned to Bessie and advised her to find an alternate convenience until the case was tackled. Enola expected such Bessie's reality could be in harm's way. Enola sorted out something that she wasn't ready to see, up to that point. Everything was directly in front of her. Once more she went through every one of the subtleties to her. She sorted out that the lady she had met at the ball, who called herself Cicely, was, actually, Sarah Chapman. Sarah and William Lyon were enamored, and together they needed to uncover Henry Lyon and other people who were associated with the wrongdoing. The phosphorus that was being utilized to make the white tops of the matchsticks was the reason for the passings of a few female laborers. The organization was accusing the typhus plague, however the pandemic was only a deception, a disguise to get away from culpability. William Lyon was an extremist, very much like Tewkesbury. He had welcomed Tewkesbury to the ball intentionally. He needed his assistance in transforming the production line regulations. Yet again Enola went to the matchstick production line and found her sibling Sherlock. They found that William had been killed. Sherlock sorted out that William Lyon was the person who had broken into the depository office and taken those significant archives. The depository office went under Lord McIntyre, who was the depository serf. Henry Lyon and McIntyre were contriving together, and the confirmation was concealed in those taken archives. White phosphorus was efficiently accessible, and the processing plant proprietors realized that they could create colossal gains assuming they involved it underway. However, the proof drove them to McIntyre. Sherlock realized that it had all been organized to delude them. Enola found a torn piece of paper with the very melodic images that she had tracked down before in May's control. The melodic piece was known as the reality of the divine beings, and Tewksbury felt that could be alluding to the top column of the theater hall, which was frequently alluded to as the divine beings. Enola had a revelation of sorts. She understood that it was not music but rather a guide. The guide drove them to the theater hall where Enola tracked down something under one of the seats. Sarah, who was likewise at the assembly hall, let Enola know that it had the papers that were taken from the Treasury office and furthermore the torn pages of the processing plant register, which had the names of the multitude of young ladies who had been killed by phosphorus. Henry, McIntyre, and others knew it all, and they decided not to talk about everything along. McIntyre showed up at the scene, and he attempted to arrest Sarah for extorting him by taking individual data, i.e., the first agreement papers, which was evidence that he had schemed with Henry Leone. In any case, McIntyre was mixed up. Sarah was not his blackmailer. It was his colleague, Mira Troy, who had arranged everything. Mira Troy was Moriarty, an excellent bookkeeper, who had tested Sherlock. Moriarty had a great deal of pomposity and had consistently accepted that her mind was unrivaled. For a really long time she had been serving McIntyre, yet it hadn't driven her anyplace. She trusted herself to be a virtuoso. She needed a portion of his wealth and furthermore needed to show him a thing or two. She involved the bad administrator Chalice for her motivations. Moriarty had been persecuted for quite a long time and denied what she believed she was meriting. She was finished living in the shadows of awkward men. She was finished serving the ones who subverted her own power. However, McIntyre consumed the agreement papers, and he was unable to be charged for planning against the female laborers. Tewksbury uncovered his debasement and got him captured. However, the immediate association of McIntyre and the passings of the young ladies couldn't be demonstrated. Sarah persuaded all the female assembly line laborers to leave the processing plants and dissent against the bad rulers. Sherlock Holmes made a proposal to Enola to work with him, something that she had needed since the earliest reference point. However, Enola rejected the proposition. She felt that it was basic for her to lay out her own believability. She needed to substantiate herself that she was fit for settling cases freely. She needed to leave her own imprint in the public arena. Perhaps later on, we will see the kin opening an office together. However, informally, they will continue to take each other's assistance. Sherlock, as well, had developed to regard and appreciate the excellent abilities of his more youthful sister. He saw a flair in her, not at all like some other individual he had met. He realized that one day she would turn into an incredible investigator. In the credit scene, we see that Enola had sent a flatmate for her sibling. Enola felt that Sherlock needed an organization and being desolate wasn't benefiting him for certain. Work negatively affected him, and he was likewise a human toward the day's end. He expected to trust in somebody and offer the stuff that he carried on his shoulders. That individual's name was Dr. John Watson, whom we as a whole know from Crafted by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, a previous armed force specialist who might ultimately turn into Sherlock's dearest companion and a confided-in partner. Once more, ideally in the third installment, we would see the savage women's activist battling against all the chances and turning into the voice of the persecuted. My major motivation is your support, so please don't forget to like the videos and subscribe to my channel for more videos and updates.